Hi, and welcome to Pass Her the Mic, a lifestyle, wellness, personal development mini-series with your host, yours truly, Deandra Kanu. Please welcome Maryana.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna try not to let that get to my head.
I love to gas up my guests.
Wow.
But that is a long list. That's an extensive list of things that you're currently doing, things that you've been through. And one of the reasons I really wanted you on here was because I love following you and your health tips and your journey that you went through with your health. That's like the number one thing that I just find so interesting about you. So I don't want to jump into it a little bit, but first of all, how did you get into the influencer space? Were you always posting about your health?
Yeah, oh my gosh. So I got into the influencer space way before it was cool. Let me bring this mic a little closer. There you go.
So like what year are we thinking?
I'm thinking like high school.
Really?
Like I was literally a junior in high school, and I remember making my little YouTube channel, and I was actually filming in the complex of my apartment building, and quality, production value, all that stuff was so bad. It was way before social media was actually cool, and I never ever set out for it to be a job or in any way, shape, or form anything other than just like connecting with people, because I was feeling really just insecure about my body. So I originally moved here from Ukraine, actually. I moved when I was 10.
Okay.
And when I moved here, I was very severely just depressed. I didn't speak English. I didn't have any friends. My entire environment changed, from going to a different country at this age. It was so traumatic. And I dealt with that trauma through food. So I just, anytime I was sad, anytime I was feeling any kind of feeling, I would just turn to food, like McDonald's and pizza. And I think my parents were feeling really guilty for the uproot in my life, and they let me eat the way that I wanted to eat. So very quickly, I developed a poor relationship with food. And in high school, I think it's such a pivotal age. Mm-hmm. Like, you feel so seen, and also at the same time so invisible to the people that you want to be seen to.
Were you the Tumblr girl? Were you like in the Tumblr era?
I actually never got into Tumblr.
Really?
No, I think it was like right. So I got really lucky. My high school boyfriend at the time was obsessed with like Christian Guzman and like the Gymshark crew that was just kind of starting
I remember
out.
Christian when he came up with what is it, Buff Bunny? Wasn't he dating Buff Bunny?
Yes. I think they actually just got engaged.
Oh, wow. It's been a long time that they've been together.
I don't follow either one of them. I don't know why I know that. But rumor travels fast. Right. And I think he just kind of got into bodybuilding, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I was feeling so insecure in my body and just so self-conscious in every way. And I got into it as well. And after I started, in a way, I think that lifestyle just isolated me from my peers in high school. So I was looking for a connection. And at the time, social media was just kind of starting out. Twitter was really cool. And like Instagram was kind of meh. And YouTube was very niche. Like it was
hard to edit on YouTube at that time.
Oh my God, it was so hard to edit. Actually, my high school boyfriend was editing a lot of my YouTube videos, bless his soul. I think, again, I just never set out for it to be anything. I just started posting my workouts and what I was eating and like the changes that I was seeing in my body, and it grew from there. And it grew almost, I don't want to say overnight because it wasn't overnight, but within like a year, I remember Gymshark reaching out, which was so cool. It was such a moment for me because I just was such a fan. And they didn't really have sponsorships necessarily at the time, but they were like, we'd love to send you some clothes. And I was like, this is the best thing ever. Like, this is so cool. And that's how I got into social media, and here we are now. I actually just heard that they're offering a college, course or something like that on how to become a social media influencer. So
I'm not surprised.
Goodbye.
Yeah, that's actually amazing, and I envy you for getting into it when it was very new and very young. A lot of the beauty influencers is exactly the same way. Like I grew up watching some of these, like even what is her name, Jackie.
I know who you're talking about.
Her name. I'm so bad with names.
I used to watch the Beyond Beauty Star, Claudia Sulewski and Aspen.
Michelle
Allard.
Pham.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's just so many OG YouTubers, and it was crazy because they were putting their life out there at a time where it wasn't a thing. Like people were like, why are we wanting to watch other people go to the grocery store? At that time, it just wasn't as normal. So I really applaud you for getting into the space, and it's also really amazing because you grew so big because of it.
I definitely think I grew because I didn't set out for it to be anything other than just a connection and a way to build friendships with people, because I was feeling so lonely. And honestly, people ask me all the time, like, do you have any advice? Like, I want to get into, I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the wrong person to ask. I got lucky. I think it was partially luck, also partially ability to be vulnerable online at the time where that wasn't cool. And I definitely paid my price for it. Like, people in high school, I remember, in like senior year finding my YouTube channel, and I was so embarrassed and I didn't want to keep posting. But I also had already built this little tiny community that I felt so connected to because we were all doing the same thing. And that felt so special. And in a way, like it forced me to push through that, I guess, the judgment that I felt from it. And now I'm like, look, like everyone from high school wants to be a social media influencer. Like,
Literally. And it's funny because I relate to you in a lot of ways. I started a YouTube channel before even 2018, but 2018 was when I really started posting on YouTube because I developed insomnia, and that's something I'll like talk about a little bit. But I like automatically, just randomly, my senior year of college developed insomnia, and I started posting on YouTube as a way to kind of like share my story and like my bedtime routine and little things like that. And I didn't carry it on because I ended up going on The Bachelor and I had to stop posting on YouTube. So that just kind of died out because of our contracts. But before that, my intention was to share with people like these health things I was going through and how to like work through them or what I was doing at the time. And I feel like when you go into social media, the intention behind it, people can read that and they understand it. And now obviously people just want to post their fancy lifestyle because they want to get followers and they want to get paid to go on trips. And while that's great and there's nothing wrong with that, building a community requires you being vulnerable and sharing things that they can actually use in their everyday life, and then them also seeing like the true version of yourself. So I think that's really beautiful. A question that I had was going back to your relationship with food in high school and even you just moving to the US. Were you always like naturally small and lean, or did you feel like moving to the US, did you like gain weight and that's when you started to feel like maybe insecure? Was your body type like for people who are listening and have no idea?
oh, no, definitely. Yeah, let's get into that.
Are you like naturally slim? Because you know those girls who are naturally slim and then
You know, I'm not even gonna comment on that because I was about to say good for them, but like let's get over that. Like it's any, I think all body types, and I really, I think let me find the wording. I guess I'm so proud of our generation for really like taking a step towards just appreciating all bodies, and I know we're still really far away from being officially like completely there, but I do think our kids will hopefully have a little bit less pressure to be small, because I felt that pressure my entire life. I was a chubby kid all throughout. My grandparents will tell you, the one thing we didn't have problems with you was food. Like, you just ate everything, you ate your friends' food. Like, I just loved food, and honestly, I still love food.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just had like more of a chubby, I guess, build or body type as a kid, and that's totally fine. But I remember being really aware of my body, like very early on when I shouldn't have been aware of it. I remember my like family members, and I don't think that they were realizing that they were doing it, doing something harmful to me, but they would be like pinching my arms or pinching my tummy, and like I was just a kid, I think it's totally fine for kids to have a little bit more weight on them, and I remember just feeling really like aware of like, oh, okay, I guess I am a little bit bigger than the rest of my friends. And I think once I moved to the US, I just kind of leaned into food because it was the thing that made me feel so much better at a time where I was
comfortable.
Yeah, really just, I didn't have friends. I didn't have an environment that felt safe necessarily. So I totally did not grow up with a super lean physique that was like, you just can eat whatever you want. And I'm like, I'll put on weight. If I eat whatever I want, I will put on weight. And I think it's just, I listened to a podcast recently that was like, it made me appreciate my body even more. This doctor was saying that ability to store fat is an evolutionary blessing. Yeah, he said thousands of years ago, like you would be the person who would survive over somebody who can't store fat. It's like a really cool thing, except now that we just have access to food all the time in quantities that we couldn't possibly imagine, that it's now hurting us, but like actually it's a really cool thing. And I'm like, okay, thank you, body. Let's find new ways to like appreciate these things. So.
I appreciate hearing that too. I think that the reason I asked you that question is because a lot of people on social media will have like naturally slim body types and then go out and post like, this is what I eat in the day, and not disclose like, hey, by the way, I wake up and I look like this no matter what I eat. And I think it's this misconception, because when I first met you, I was like, oh my gosh, like this girl's just like so lean. And of course I didn't really know you at the time. And then following you and understanding your journey, I'm like, you've been through so much and you had to like relearn a lot of habits, which it's beautiful because now you have a healthy relationship with food. And I know even when I was younger, I didn't have the healthiest relationship with food. It was the Tumblr era. I was like, it was pro Anna and pro bulimia, like this really small, skinny girls, like that was in, it was chic, it was everything. And it's almost coming back actually. Like we went from the BBL era to now it's like very, very slim. So it's a lot of pressure. I want to fast forward to you being a Gymshark athlete. So you're a Gymshark athlete. What was your experience? What were you feeling in your body? Because you said that something was off, which led to your diagnosis later on. But tell me a little bit about your experience. Gymshark athlete, your workouts, what you were doing, what you were eating, how you were feeling.
Totally. So I get this Gymshark sponsorship, and for probably like my early college years, and even a little bit after college, I was like, oh, this is so cool. I'm bodybuilding like 6 times a week. I moved to LA. I joined Gold's Gym. I'm tracking my macros, my calories. I'm so hyper aware of everything, you know, in terms of what's going into my body, what my body looks like. I started getting abs. I started to see these crazy results. I feel great. I end up going through a breakup with my high school sweetheart at the time, and it was totally necessary. I knew it was necessary. I initiated the breakup, but I think I didn't understand how much the stress of it all was, like what it was going to, I guess, the expectation that it was going to take for my body, or the pressure that it was going to put on my body on top of already training like crazy, already restricting my calories for a long time. And I think it just kind of set my body into a state of emergency. Like that's the way I started looking at it from at this point on. I remember I went through this breakup. I was barely eating. I was exercising like crazy. I just wanted to kind of numb all the feelings and the stress that came from that through gym and the things that I could control, which is, again, my workouts and my food. And I remember waking up like a few months after that, actually, and I was like, oh, I don't feel well. Like I've never felt this way before. And it's an interesting feeling to describe, like inflammation and your hormone changes. It starts to feel like, I don't know, I had like hot flashes, and I would wake up with night sweats, and I could see my face start to change and my skin start to change. And I did what I thought, oh, okay, I'm just putting on weight. Excuse me, I just bumped this one. I thought, okay, I'm just putting on weight. So what am I going to do? I'm going to restrict even more. I'm going to work out even more. So
A lot of stress.
So much stress. And I was so young at the time. I was 22, 23. Actually, yeah, I was about 22. And I just didn't really understand what was happening. And I relied on these things that I had already learned from the bodybuilding community, which is like calories in versus calories out. And
You were also taking hella supplements, I'm sure.
hella supplements that were
Pre-workouts,
so bad for my
protein
health.
bars.
Yes, all the things. I was eating not for health at all. I was eating for complete
Visibility.
appearance. Appearance-based eating is what I call it
Yeah.
now. And
That's super common though.
Oh,
and it's what's pushed a lot of times in the fitness industry is like, this will help you look like this. Do
100%.
this.
Yeah, and these supplements and these like I think back in the day, and I'm like really aging myself now. I'm only 27, so
I'm the same.
I'm like
I feel ancient.
Yes, but back in the day, it was just like that was health. Looking good meant that you were healthy, and I think now I just have such a different definition of health. Anyway, so I lose my period, which was like the number one thing where I was like, okay, something is really wrong. Yeah. Because I was on the copper IUD, which was non-hormonal birth control, and I'm like, I know that I'm supposed to be getting a period, but I'm not. So a few months go by, and I'm like, okay, I really need to go to the doctor, like something's wrong. I go to the doctor, and they're like, oh, you're just stressed out. They don't want to do any tests. They don't want to look at me. They don't want to, nothing. I literally remember going to the office, and he was like, oh, you're fine. You haven't had it for like 3 months? Oh, it's not a big deal.
I'm really triggered and frustrated by hearing that because that's exactly how a lot of the doctors that I even go to tell me. They're like, oh, you're fine. Like you're stressed or, do this. Like they're not really trying to find the source of what's going on.
No, totally not. And my experience was, I remember I would go from doctor to then gynecologist to then another gynecologist, and a little family history. So my parents were both doctors in Ukraine. My entire family is like, my grandma's a pharmacist. My mom was a doctor. My grandfather was a surgeon who operated on neonatal babies, like 0 to 15-day-old babies. And he traveled all over the world. He was like an amazing man. Anyway, long story short, family of doctors. My dad's a doctor as well. So the first thing I do when I lose my period is I call my dad. I'm like freaking out. And he's like, okay, here's like some specialists you can go to. I go to these specialists. Finally, I get a PCOS diagnosis. And I'm sitting in the office, and the woman goes, she does the ultrasound, she does the blood work. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to diagnose you with PCOS. And this is like, I'm 22 years old. And she's looking directly at me, but also kind of looking through me. And she goes, and I'll never forget this, she goes, so I'm going to prescribe you these birth control pills. Whenever you're ready to have babies, you just come back in this office and we're going to take you off and we're just going to do IVF. And I was like,
no options.
my mouth dropped. I literally remember my entire body got so hot and I was so stressed out. I was like, what do you mean? Like, can't my period come back? And she was like, no, but without birth control, you're going to keep experiencing all these symptoms. Birth control will regulate your period.
Right.
And I walked out of the office and I remember driving my car. And this has been like post a lot of different appointments. And I was driving my car and I was on the phone with my mom. And I'm like, Mom, I don't want to die.
Right.
But I could drive my car off this bridge right now.
Yeah.
Like there's a big feeling in me that's I'm so defeated. I feel so not in control of my body right now. I could see my body changing day by day and putting on more inflammation. I can't sleep through the night. I can't go to the bathroom. My face is blowing up with acne. My hair's falling out in the shower. Like I just had gone through a breakup. All I wanted to do was like go out and date people
Right.
and feel sexy
Blow
and feel
up.
good. And I'm like, my health is just taking a turn. And these doctors are telling me that there's nothing I can do. And the birth control part was really frustrating because I had been on birth control for about 4 years before that. And I felt awful on it. Like I had really bad anxiety and depression. Mental health was really suffering. So I went off of it hoping I would feel better, to then be told you have to be on this for the rest of your life. It was the most defeated I've ever felt in my entire life.
Wow. Okay. And so after getting the diagnosis, how did you start moving forward to self-treat? Because you've basically healed yourself. And so you're frustrated. No one's listening to you. No one's hearing you. The doctors who we look up to, we listen to, we have no formal education. I'm not a doctor, but I just believe that at this point, like we have to take our own health into our hands. What did you do next? Did you cut out dairy? Did you cut out gluten? Tell me exactly what you did that made you healed.
Okay. So I went home after that day. I remember that day very
You cried it
very
out.
specifically. I had a meltdown. I totally cried it out. I hugged my cats. And then I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, I cannot be the only woman who's going through this. Like, let me at least learn. I've never heard of PCOS before this. I mean, maybe I did, but like I knew nothing about it.
It wasn't really like a well-known thing back then.
No, because a lot of women are either misdiagnosed or as much as it's misdiagnosed, it's also underdiagnosed because doctors just don't take women's health seriously. So I was like, let me just start doing some research. And I also was on the phone with my dad. And my dad was like, okay, you've seen, 5 or 6 specialists now. Why don't you try some holistic medicine? My dad suffers from Lyme disease, and he found relief through Chinese medicine. And this is like somebody who's been to med school twice. Like he went to med school in Ukraine, he went to med school here. My dad is extremely smart. And he was like, I think at this point you're going to find help maybe in a more holistic space. So I started doing research, and I find all these articles of women writing about how they healed their PCOS. Now, let me just say that these articles were really hard to find because the first things that come up when you're researching PCOS is, birth control and IVF and all this other stuff. And I'm like, holy shit. But if you dig hard enough, you'll find women talking about how they healed their PCOS. So I took about 2 weeks to just research. I remember I wasn't really doing anything other than just like listening to podcasts on this, trying to find articles. Social media was, again, my friend. I was like, okay, I have found answers here before. Hopefully it can help me again. Then I ended up finding an 85-year-old acupuncturist here in Koreatown. His name is Dr. Choi. Plug to Dr. Choi. He saved my life. The first thing that I did when I showed up to his office was cry.
Wait, he doesn't work there anymore, does he?
He does.
He does? Did you send me his information?
I think I did. Yeah, I am Dr. Choi's biggest plug. He actually had to text me about a year ago. He goes, Maryana, no more. Don't send any more people. Dr. Choi, very busy. I'm like, as long as you have time for Maryana, you're okay.
I'm gonna call him and be like, hey, no, you said no more appointments.
No, he's probably fine. But I show up to his office and I have all these documents of like the blood work and all that. And he literally like pushed it off to the side and he was like, I just want to look at you. Now this man barely speaks English, okay? His office was not fancy. It's not giving LA, acupuncture wellness space. It's giving
making the most of their space.
This man is old and he's seen some stuff, He starts looking at me like a human being. Like he looks inside my mouth, inside my ears. He takes my fingerprints. He takes like a strand of my hair. Just like he's looking at me. He's asking me all these questions of how I sleep and what I eat and how I exercise. And he goes, give me 6 months. Give me 6 months. Don't go on birth control. Come see me twice a week. Take the herbs that I'm going to give you. He gave me herbs that I would take 3 times a day. And he goes, I need you to start doing yoga and stop weightlifting, stop stressing your body out. No more HIIT exercises, no more running, no more sprinting, no more. He was like, your body, basically the way he described it was your body is under so much stress, and it had to turn off this function of ovulating because it's not in a position to have a baby and sustain a baby right now because it feels like you're so stressed out. So he was like, I need you to start being in nature, to start walking, start doing yoga, maybe do some Pilates. He said acupuncture twice a week. He said, I need you to learn how to sleep. Like you're not sleeping really well. Sleep hygiene is really important, like no blue light before bed and like read. And he said, I need you to also start eating healthy fats and stop like tracking your macros. Like again, it's just another stress on your body.
Basically stop overthinking everything.
Stop overthinking everything, let go. And he was like, trust me, like I got you. And it was the first time in this entire time where a doctor's been like, we're going to do this together. Now I just want to say, like, insurance doesn't cover this stuff.
No.
This was extremely expensive.
What is it, like 300 a session?
No, it was actually 125 a session with herbs included. Again, this is like Koreatown, like it's not very, it wasn't very fancy. It wasn't like.
But that's still really expensive because I think a place I called here, because I still need to get acupuncture, and I'm going to call him right after we get done with this, by the way. But it's like really expensive, and I feel like people get frustrated. And when people like me right now, like I want to see a naturopath, but that's 300 just to meet with them. And then you have to go get blood work, and then you have to come back, and then you have to meet with them again. And of course, like when you're paying out of pocket, like you should invest in your health, and absolutely like it should be a priority in your life, and that's where your money should go. But I think a lot of people get frustrated in like, okay, I'm going to have to pay all this money just for them to tell me.
Which is really fair. Like here's the problem. The problem is with our healthcare system. The problem is our healthcare system is set up to treat symptoms versus treating the cause of the problem. If you want to treat a symptom, take a pill, the symptom goes away. Take that pill again the next day, the symptom also goes away. The problem is if you're treating the root cause, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes money, and people don't have literally all 3 of those things. I'm so fortunate. I feel so blessed, which is why I made this switch to now talking about women's health and trying to help people just change their daily lifestyle towards a more
in a free way.
In a free way, what the things that people can do, like support their body through their sleep, through their food, through their stress management, through all these things. But it's such a privilege, and I just want to like say that because people that are working 9 to 5s and they have 2 little kids and they have a marriage they need to take care of and probably other family members and the stress of this world and where we're at today, like nobody has time to go to Dr. Choi and see him twice a week. Like of course they're going to go to the doctor and they're going to take that pill. The problem is in our system. It's a broken system, and I will always say that, like, it is not the individual's fault. I think it's a government problem, to be honest, but we don't have to go there.
I hear that, and I agree completely. And this is something I've talked about on my podcast. I definitely think Western medicine, it's capitalistic. They want, and it's crazy because I work for a pharmaceutical company. Like that's like what I do, and it's amazing in some ways. I think it's really amazing, like for someone who's battling something and they need like a painkiller now, or you need a temporary relief. But then getting to the root, it's frustrating. It's like hitting your head on a wall. Like I just recently went to get blood work because I'm experiencing something that I'm self-diagnosing as PCOS, but the doctors are unsure. So like I have severe insomnia. I stopped sleeping in 2018. I was able to manage it. I went to an herbalist and I went to an acupuncturist in Dallas, and I was seeing them on a weekly basis, and it was kind of helping. And then I was able to sustain. And then now that I'm in LA, especially these past 2 weeks, I have not been sleeping again, and I'm anxious AF. I feel inflamed. I'm gaining weight, and I'm gaining weight in all the wrong areas. So I'm like, okay, my stress is just piling on. I'm meditating. I'm doing everything I can to combat it. I'm eating healthy. But now I've gone to this doctor. He's taken my blood work, looked at my blood work, and been like, oh, you're pretty much good. Like you're a healthy individual. Your, what is it, keratin? Something like my iron levels were slightly off, which is like my storage levels. But other than that, he was like, you're good. And I'm like, I'm not good. I don't know what other blood test or like urine test, or I even did like a stool test at one point for my gut because no one is giving me answers. And I'm like, how do I explain that I'm not well? I don't feel good. I don't have energy. Halfway through the day, I have to lay down. Like I'm not well. but no one is listening to me. And that's why I'm like, I need to go to a naturopath and I need to go to a Chinese doctor.
Yeah, well, here's the problem. The problem is that I love, Western medicine. I always get this confused. Yeah, Western medicine, right?
I think you love Eastern medicine.
No. Okay, yeah. So I love Western medicine for
Immediate
issues. You have a broken bone. You need a transplant. You have a surgery. Amazing. And
Yeah.
I think like I get a lot of people who are like, you just hate doctors. You know, I'm like,
No.
my mom, my dad, my grandpa, my grandmother are all in this space. I find so much appreciation for what they do and how they do it. The problem is in women's health. There's not enough money in that, and you cannot treat most chronic issues with this system. It's just not support. It's because there's not enough money in that.
Yeah.
So as long as people are going to profit off of people's diseases, like this cycle continues, which is such a problem. And I'm so sorry that you're going through that, because I understand how frustrating it is to feel that way. And my advice is definitely to like, I think what helped me the most, honestly, was Dr. Choi would always, when I would lay down in his office, he would close my eyes and he'd be like, too much thinking, too much stress, like let it go. Trust that your body, I think part of being a woman is like, we have to put a lot of trust in our bodies, because if we're going to, a part of being someone who identifies as a woman is that intuition, that trust, that ability to like know that our bodies can carry life and can bring life into this world, and therefore it can heal itself, it can make itself better, and you have the control over your thoughts and your like feelings towards it. So I think that anytime that I feel like a little maybe frustrated or whatever, I'm like, I always go back to like, nobody's going to help me until I come from a loving place. Nobody's going to help me until I come from a place of like wanting, just feeling this empathy towards my body and this love towards my body. And once you start with that shift, I feel like the right people come into your life and people who will listen and who will help you. So
I think
I'm sorry. I hope that you figure that out, because it is super frustrating. And again, PCOS is misdiagnosed as well as underdiagnosed, which was really hard for me to like accept.
Exactly. And that's part of the conversation that I'm like, I can't wait to be able to like learn more. And I'm watching your videos all the time. But what you were saying about like loving Eastern and Western medicine, I don't think it's so extreme as like, if we love Eastern medicine, we have to hate the other. And I think that's happens a lot in our society, is that just because you love one thing doesn't mean you hate the other. Like, why does it have to be so extreme? I think Western medicine plays a role in some cases, and then Eastern medicine plays a role in a lot of cases and heals long term. So it's like being able to have healthcare practitioners that are accessible to the normal person, because as you were saying, it is a privilege for us to be able to spend $100 to go to, chiropractors or acupuncturists or massage therapists, or even get these Chinese herbs, when a lot of people rely on insurance because they work for 9 to 5s. And I think that's what's so frustrating, is that even with this blood work, to go to a doctor, and I know I wanted to go to a naturopath, but I'm like, let me go to the doctor first, get the blood work, and maybe I'll take that blood work to the naturopath. But just even hearing the way that the doctor, he took, first of all, it was a 10-minute phone call to go over my blood work. Oh, okay. Everything looks good. Like, we're rushing through it. Didn't care about how I was feeling. Wasn't asking me any questions. Wasn't saying like, hey, these are things that we should look into. Maybe this is like what you're experiencing. Let's look in deeper. Let's switch, like pivot. I definitely have a hormonal imbalance. It's without a doubt. And the reason I say that is because when I was 15, I had a period that lasted 3 months, and it was extremely heavy. And when you're that young, I was scared to tell anybody. I didn't want to tell anybody. It lasted 3 months. So 3 months of excessive bleeding. And the only reason that it stopped was I passed out at a water park and I was rushed to the hospital. And when I was at the hospital, obviously I had to admit, hey guys, by the way, I've been losing X amount of blood. I almost had to have a transfusion.
Oh my gosh.
And the doctors didn't look into it. All they did was put me on birth control. And now looking back, I feel so sad for my 15-year-old self, because I was so scared. I was so depleted. I became anemic because of it. And all the doctors told me was, go on birth control. We don't know what's wrong with you. They never told me, oh, like this is normal. Irregular periods are normal. It's not normal. We're not supposed to be experiencing this. And then I was on birth control for 5 years. And then I got off in 2018 when I stopped sleeping, because I was like, maybe there's a connection here. And ever since then, I've had debilitating cramps as well. Like I'm talking to the point where I have to take painkillers because they're so painful. And that's not normal.
No, it's not normal. And actually, I would definitely look into endometriosis as well, because like the heavy bleeding in the period and all that, but what I'll say is this: birth control is great. Birth control gives women the power to control their sexual health, which is so cool and so amazing, and like we need to stand for birth control for women because
Absolutely.
it's great. Birth control should be used to control birth. End.
Yeah.
Period.
I wasn't
That's
using, yeah.
it. Putting 15-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old girls who are, these are our years for our body to figure out what the fuck is going on
Right.
and how to like do this. How do we build in this? How do we like make a follicle, and how does this follicle get where it needs to go?
Yeah.
These are the years we're supposed to figure out, and they see one little problem. Oh, acne, oh, birth control.
Yeah.
Oh, heavy periods, oh, birth control. It's like,
You never figure it out.
No, that's not, birth control should not be used for that.
Right.
And if it is going to be used for that because it's an emergency, then you need to like find other ways to then help these women later in life, because that's such a big pandemic. All these women are coming off of birth control and they're like, why now I don't have a period for 3 years, or my hair's falling out, or I feel like shit, and I'm not ovulating, my body doesn't know what to do. Like, there's just, I have such a problem with it being used to treat symptoms because it was not made for that. It was not the point of it. And it's just lazy. I find that to be so lazy and like
Detrimental.
Yeah, totally detrimental. Yeah.
What you were saying about it's great, like temporarily. So for in my instance, great, put me on it for 2 months so that I stop bleeding.
Yes.
While it's that we're experiencing those 2 months, we should be doing tests. We should be, doing scans. We should be doing all this. And no one followed up with me. I went to the ER, left the ER, and then for 5 years after that was on birth control. I was like, oh, I'm normal. In my mind, I'm a 15-year-old kid. I'm like, cool, I'm healed. You have no idea. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I'm healed. And then when I got off it, the acne came back, the debilitating cramps. No one hears me. When I tell you for 3 days during my period, I can't leave my home. Thank God I work from home. Thank God I do influencing, because I literally can't walk. And it's to the point where it's like, I will be like covered in sweat. It's horrible. Like, and anyone around me knows like I suffer so badly. And so like even going through the endometriosis, now you're bringing that up, and I thought it might be, but I'm like, okay, maybe it's PCOS, because no one is telling me about what these things is.
The problem with endometriosis is that you cannot get an official diagnosis without surgery.
Really?
Which is super frustrating. It's another really common hormonal problem for women. It's when your tissues, your uterine tissues, they grow outside, so they can grow in your ovaries, they can grow on other parts of they can grow in like your intestines and other places. And when your body is shedding the uterine lining, it starts shedding in those areas as well, which is super painful because it's supposed to be contained in your uterus.
Gosh.
And they don't even have, and I don't want to freak you out. I mean, people find a lot of relief when they do the surgery, because if they do the surgery, they can kind of shave those parts off, and then you'll find relief. The problem is that a lot of times it comes back. But I do think that there is holistic approaches to this stuff, and there's stuff that you can do to like minimize that, because you always have to ask yourself, why is this happening, right? A lot of stuff starts in the gut. A lot of stuff starts from stress. And again, I think the problem in today's world is that women are also just so go, go, go. Like we don't
have a choice.
We don't have a choice. We don't have time to slow down. I mean, honestly, if I have a daughter one day, like, especially during the time where she's going through these hormonal changes, I would want her to like take time off of school on days where she maybe needs more rest and be able to sleep in longer. And like, it's just, this world is just not set up, and we're supposed to just get with it and get on this cycle of like, the world is set up for like the masculine energy, right?
Of course.
Especially now with this, and it's like, it sounds like I'm like anti-feminist in some sort of way, because I'm like, well, women need to slow down. Women need a little bit more time.
It's not. You understand something that a lot of people don't. I think that's what it is.
I just think we need to wake up and realize we are so different. Our body functions so differently. At the beginning of your cycle, when you're in your follicular phase, you're feeling good, and then you ovulate and you have all this energy. Yeah, you can go to, you can take a 6 a.m. meeting and then do a workout class at 9 p.m. and you can still get 6 hours of sleep and feel great. The second you get into your luteal phase, which is the phase right before you menstruate, you need rest, you feel grumpy, things start to hurt, you're more achy. Yeah. It's just like the natural cycle. And men don't experience that. They can just be up and running all the time, most of the time. It's not to say that men don't experience hormonal issues. Actually, from what I've learned is that men in today's world have like almost 40% less testosterone. Don't quote me on this, but it's like a significant amount less testosterone than their grandfathers did, which is, again, interesting, because we live in this world full of microplastics and toxins and stress and environmental factors. I mean, so much goes into it. We could have a whole other conversation about just how this world is just, again, not set up for us to be healthy, and how hard it is to be healthy, how much you have to go out of your way to be healthy.
Yeah.
But especially for people who identify as women, I think it's just, you are just in the trenches.
And this is the reason I wanted to start this podcast, is because I hear about it from like a couple podcasters talking about things that are going on in this world. And I want to be able to inform people. I want my listeners and my audience, and now your audience, to be able to hear these things and hear them like straight off the bone. Like, this is what's going on. This is what you're missing, but this might be the reality of it. Like, we have to start looking at things from a different direction. And what's actually hilarious about this feminine and masculine, and we're seeing a lot on TikTok, like being in your feminine energy, and people think it's just taking bubble baths and it's like letting men pay for stuff. And it's like, there's like a strong correlation about the way that people are talking about feminine energy and masculine energy to what's actually happening in men and women's bodies. Men are, like they say, oh, men are less masculine these days. Okay, well, let's look at the statistics. If the testosterone levels are dropping, then there's a physical explanation for why men are less masculine. And now women, we're on the end of the spectrum. We're not able to be in our feminine energy, which is also putting a lot of stress on our bodies, which is why a lot of women are experiencing way more problems, because we aren't men. We aren't built to withstand certain amounts of stress. And women who are like single moms living in a household, like the reason that we needed partners was so that they would help us take off some of that stress, because our hormones fluctuate 10, 50, 30, 100 times more than men.
Yeah.
Like, it's a real thing. Women are more emotional because we have way more hormonal imbalances and changes, and that affects us, and stress affects us. And that's why we're seeing so many problems.
Oh my God, there's so much to like uncover there. And I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know that I feel very torn. Like, it's super not black and white. This entire, like, it's the same thing as like birth control, right? Is it so cool that we can now take a pill and like be able to have sexual freedom? Oh my God, yes, it's so cool. Is it not cool that this pill is also like depleting us of minerals and like making us
Detrimental to our body in some ways.
Yeah, so not cool. Is it cool that women can now vote and have freedom in their lives and like they don't need to rely on men? So cool. Of course it's cool. Are we physically built to sustain that much stress and keep up with the men in order to achieve the success and all that stuff? No.
Yeah.
So again, it's like a societal problem. Like, of course I don't want to go back, because a lot of times if I talk about that stuff, they're like, well, what? Are we supposed to just like get married now and like not have jobs, not have,
No, but it's
I'm
a balancing act.
No, but you can't. I mean, it's insane to think that you can have 3 kids, be a good mom to those 3 kids, also have a crazy job that requires you to work, 50, 60 hours a week.
Stay in shape.
Stay in shape, have good relationships, have friendships. No, especially to do that on a menstrual cycle all the time. And then you hit menopause. And women in menopause are actually the people I feel the most sorry for, because the thing is, right now, at least if you're in your, I guess, the age where you are fertile, let's just say that. I think in a way society views you as like, well, you're good for us, right? Yeah. Like, you're going to provide babies later. So at least it's in some way they take it seriously. And like IVF, the fact that IVF is an option for a lot of women who can't get pregnant naturally is amazing. There is a lot of progress being made in that department. Women who hit menopause are completely understudied in society. It's like society is like, okay, you're done. Now go deal with this thing that happens, which is insane. It's the most, I've seen family members go through menopause, and it's such a stressful thing for a woman to go through. And again, it is not supported by modern medicine. And that's my problem. Oh my God, we could do a whole part 2 on all this stuff.
And I definitely will have you back, because there's just so many things that I feel like you understand and I understand. And sometimes it's hard to articulate because you have to be careful, because it's very sensitive. And that's part of the reason, again, why I wanted a podcast, because even if it triggers somebody, it needs to be heard. Yeah. Even if someone's like, well, if you want to work a full-time job, you want to have kids, which just getting pregnant and bearing children is extremely stressful for the body. Like, I feel sad for any pregnant woman who's like stressed to like provide for herself and like do everything, because it is so hard. And so people just like hearing that, I believe that women should be able to take it easy. I think that we need to take it easy for our bodies. And I think that's why, like, even me right now, like providing for myself, taking care of everything on my own, like in a different city. Oh my God, I'm losing my sleep. I'm an anxious human being, and I'm doing all of the right things in my health, but I'm still subconsciously I'm under some kind of attack.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think bigger picture wise, and I hope what people can take away from this podcast is that on an individual level, it is never your fault. Like, what has happened in your body is not your fault. If you can zoom out and just see that this is a societal problem, this is a government problem, this is a problem in modern medicine. If these things were to shift, I think women just could use a little bit more support. And then, yeah, we can be amazing mothers and great business owners and, good partners and have these good relationships. Yeah. But this needs to change on a societal level. And how do you change society? You change it on an individual level, right? So do what you can. I don't want this to feel like, oh, crap, well, then we're all doomed. No, I think in a way, everyone is waking up. Everyone is starting to get a little bit more in tune. I think in a lot of ways, we're moving towards a really great society. In other ways we're not. I guess that's always kind of how it's been. Yeah. But I have a lot of hope for our generation. I have a lot of hope for the women of our generation. I think we're trying to kind of navigate this new space of we do have all these new opportunities that we in a way still really have to fight for. Mm-hmm. But now we also have to fight for our health and fight for our needs and fight for these other stuff. And I do think we will progress. We will continue to progress as society. But like you said, I think your podcast is so cool because then people can learn and they can maybe feel a little bit less alone and feel like, okay, yeah, you know what, this hormonal thing that's happening is not my fault. Or maybe the problems in my relationship right now are not my fault because I'm trying to navigate 1,000 different things and I was not meant to navigate all this.
Yeah. And just as a human species right now, we're not meant to absorb so much information. Even with the internet, we're not meant to absorb so much stress. The reason that people are in constant inflammation, which I believe that I am, and you were at one point, is because inflammation is so great for our bodies when we're under attack. Mm-hmm. If you get scratched by a bear in the wilderness, inflammation kicks in so you don't bleed out. Yep. It's your body protecting you, but it's also a stress response. Mm-hmm. Now, fast forward to modern day, every day we get on the internet and we're looking at things and we're feeling bad about ourselves and then we're taking work calls and then you're trying to maintain relationships and friendships. Our body can't tell if we're being attacked by a bear or if we're seeing social media or if we're under stress from a job. It doesn't know the difference. So what it does is it puts your body into a state of inflammation and constantly, and what it does is it's depleting you. Mm-hmm. It's essentially your body thinking that you're under attack, and what it does is it's going to lead to eventually like organ failure. Like you're depleting your actual body, and that's why you have all these physical symptoms that are coming up, whether it be headaches, whether it be gaining weight, because your body is trying to tell you like right now we're under attack.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you. So yeah, inflammation in itself is great. It heals wounds. It helps you, like you said, you get attacked, it heals itself. Chronic inflammation is the problem. Yeah. And I want to give some actual tips in this podcast of how you can manage chronic inflammation. One, healthy fats, things like avocados, olive oil, organic, like mixed nuts, making sure they don't have mold because sometimes those can.
Peanuts, a lot of times have mold.
Hemp seeds, chia seeds, adding healthy fats, especially with your breakfast, first thing in the morning. Full fat coconut yogurt with maybe some mixed nuts in it, maybe some granola that's based in, like the hemp seeds, chia seeds, all these things. Cutting out caffeine. I mean, I know people don't want to hear that. Yeah. I know people don't want to hear that. But if you're already chronically stressed, what caffeine does is it turns off your tiredness receptors, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like it gives you energy. All it does is your body's tired. It's letting you know it's tired. Caffeine turns that off. So now your body's like, okay, I guess we're not tired, so we're going to have all this energy. Where is that energy coming from? It's pulling from you when you don't have anywhere to give or any more to give. So you want to cut off your caffeine, or if you are going to have caffeine, have your breakfast, and then maybe have your matcha instead of having a coffee, and have that matcha with like full fat coconut milk that has good ingredients in it. Watch what you eat. I mean, we're eating crap. There's so much shit in our food. And a lot of the food that's marketed as healthy has crap in it. The less processed, the better. And
Read
you
your
don't
labels.
have to eat organic, but if you can, totally eat organic. If you can, find 5-10 minutes out of your day to get grounded. That means take your shoes off, go stand in the grass. Even if it's a patch of grass at a park in the middle of New York, just put your feet in the ground and just stare into the sun, not into the actual sun, but get some sun on your body and just take a moment to breathe.
Meditation.
Prioritize your sleep. Take some time for yourself. I think it all comes back to just slowing down. Yeah, limit your time on social media. Maybe just go read a book. Maybe before bed, especially. I think sleeping. I know you said you struggle with insomnia, and I've been there. I've totally been there. I've had stress-induced insomnia, and actually something I used to experience is if I have an event the next morning where I know I have to be up at like 7 or 6 or something, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I need to get sleep. Like, I
Same.
think stressing over your health is almost worse. So just letting it go, just being like, you know what, if I don't get sleep tonight, it's fine. A lot of times I'm like, that's when I'll fall asleep.
Yeah.
But if I'm putting pressure on myself of like, well, I have to fall asleep tonight, or I have to eat healthy, like that stress in itself is not good. So just let go, do what you can, help yourself in what ways you can. Always think about adding more things in versus taking things out. Can you add a 10-minute walk after your meal, or in the middle of your day, especially if you're stuck in an office? Can you get 10 more minutes of sunshine? Can you take a walk at night? Can you add healthy fats back in? Can you add healthy food back in? Can you add more good friends in your life? And all these things versus taking it out, oh, I need to diet or I need to lose weight. Thinking more of like adding goodness
Replenish,
back
not
in.
restrict.
Yes, exactly. Those would be my tips.
That's amazing. So those were her tips on inflammation. And just like as a caveat, we shouldn't even have to say this, but we're obviously not doctors. She comes from a line of doctors, but this is all from one being your own best health practitioner. I believe that your health is in your hands. So it's like, this is coming from a place of like, we're experiencing certain symptoms and we've done research, or, we've listened to people who are from credible sources. So like, these are our opinions, of course, in a way, but we're hoping that you're able to take these and implement this. And obviously you've been able to use this and heal yourself. So this is really great takeaways. Something that was for your inflammation, but real quick, can you tell me things that you incorporated and did to help with your PCOS?
Yeah,
The same
pretty
things?
much all those things. So I started taking probiotics. I started doing acupuncture twice a week. My period came back after making all these changes within 4 months.
Oh.
Within 4 months. I remember getting on the toilet. This is so TMI. I called my mom crying while I was still on the toilet. I'm bleeding.
Yes.
So exciting.
Right.
But, again, healthy fats. Something that really helped for me personally, was managing my blood sugar. So a lot of times there are different triggers for PCOS. Sometimes it's inflammation-based PCOS. Sometimes it's insulin-resistant-based PCOS, which means that your body, I could go on and on about
Insulin resistance,
insulin.
yeah, it's like your blood sugar's too spiked and it can't regulate it,
Insulin
correct?
resistance basically means, so insulin is a hormone, right? Insulin is a hormone that it plays a crucial role in our ability to like function day to day. What insulin does is it helps our body like process glucose. And what happens when you are insulin resistant is it means when your body releases the insulin, I believe it's your pancreas. I could totally be wrong. I just listened to everything, like you said, I learned from my experience.
Yeah.
I listen to podcasts
Self-study,
on this
that's fine.
all the time. But basically, it just means that your body has to produce more and more insulin in order to help your body use the glucose that you just ingested. And what happens is you have all this extra insulin surging through your body, and your body doesn't know what to do with it. It starts pushing it into your cells. And when that happens, your cells kind of start to swell. You start to swell. So what you want to do is manage your blood sugar. And I think a lot of women with PCOS will find, most PCOS diagnoses do stem from blood sugar irregulation. So managing your blood sugar means getting good sleep, because they say if you get like 2 weeks worth of like really bad, poor quality sleep, I think your insulin resistance already like lowered by 50% or something like that. So again, really good sleep. Taking probiotics, gut health, super important. You want to take probiotics. Personally, I find them to be the best in like a yogurt form, but there are great pills out there. Seed is a really good brand. Just Thrive is actually probably one of my favorite brands. They do a lot of third-party testing. It's a really great company. But yeah, you can take it in like a yogurt form. You can take it in a milk form, whatever. Probiotics, acupuncture, slowing down with my forms of movement. I started walking a lot. I started doing hot yoga a lot. I really wanted to just support my body. I started eating more warm foods. I wanted to warm up the inside
such a
of
Chinese
my body.
medicine
That's
thing.
the first thing he told me to do. He said, no more cold drinks, no more cold like ice baths, showers, none of that. He said, you want to warm up your system. You are cold. My hands would be cold. Everything felt cold.
My
all
feet
the
are always
time.
cold.
Always cold. Yeah, it's poor circulation. So he was like, you want to warm up your body. And I think the herbs that he was giving me were also just kind of warming up my system. You can do things like castor oil packs, especially during the second half of your cycle. You want to support your liver by, you can take like dandelion tea. Again, there's so many things. There's so many things that you can do. You don't want to do all these things at once, and you definitely don't want to do these things without supervision of a healthcare professional, whether that be a naturopath, acupuncturist, Western medicine
whatever
doctor.
works for the individual.
Whatever works
this
for
is
you.
not like a blanket statement. This is like whatever works for you guys in your lifestyle. But like these are tips that you can help that are free.
Yeah.
You know, or maybe you can go online and now you like have an idea of where to navigate because you've heard this podcast and you're like, oh great, I've heard her say these couple things. Let me go do my own research and wow, this might work for me.
For sure. I would focus on the number one thing is gut health for sure. Like cut out the crap, eat whole food based meals, eat big meals. Something that really helped me was instead of constantly snacking throughout the day, because think about it, you snack, your blood sugar goes up. 2 hours later, you snack again, your blood sugar goes up. So you're just constantly, your body's always releasing this insulin. Whereas for me, I realized if I have 2 to 3 big hearty meals where I have avocado, brown rice, lentils, some lean fish, or some fatty fish, some eggs, some beef, some, like tempeh, tofu, or whatever. But just a solid big meal. If I sit down, I eat that, I feel full for the rest of the day. I don't have as much of like these energy crashes. I don't feel like I need to constantly snack. But again, you want to make sure you're getting enough calories in those 2 big meals. I know that doesn't always work for everyone, but I found them to be super helpful for blood sugar regulation and those spikes all the time. So yeah, I would have like a meal around 11, and then I would maybe have another meal around 3, and then I have a big dinner around 6 or 6:30, and then I'm done eating for the day. Actually, and this is super controversial, we can do a whole other podcast on this, I really enjoy intermittent fasting. I found intermittent fasting to be really helpful for me. I am an exception in this. I think most women have a harder time with intermittent fasting. It's not for everyone. It's certainly not for somebody who wakes up starving.
Yeah.
It's for somebody who maybe wakes up and they're like usually not too hungry. Then I would recommend intermittent fasting for somebody like that. Someone who's like, you know what, I'm good just to like have some warm lemon water. Maybe I'll have a matcha with some full fat coconut milk around 11 or something like that, and then I'll have my first meal around 12. That's how I do it. I find that to be, again, really helpful. Fasting in itself has so many benefits, and it's so controversial. You'll hear people have very mixed opinions on it, especially when it comes to women's health. I have personally found it to be extremely helpful. And I think if you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, we were set up to be able to fast.
Right.
And there is something beneficial that comes from giving your body a chance to like detoxify, digest all that food, take everything in. I mean, why do you think we fast during the night, And I think prolonging that a little bit, you can see a lot of benefits. But again, if you are in a state where your body's already stressed out, fasting is not going to help. So it's just take that with a grain of salt, but it is something that I personally found really helpful for blood sugar regulation as well.
And I think that's beautiful. And I think there's actually a lot of science behind that as well. And so I think it's just a trigger word because people hear stuff on the internet and think it applies to them.
Yes.
And that is the problem. So please, like if you're ever listening to something on the internet, just be really mindful that it doesn't have to apply to you. You don't have to take it just because she's saying it works for her. It sometimes works for people's bodies. I also heard around your cycle, maybe the week before your cycle, you don't fast, maybe then you start the week of. There's different things. And of course, like do your research, but fasting does have a lot of benefits. And I agree with you. It can be very controversial.
Well, I also just want to add fasting, it has to be like there are people who take intermittent fasting to an extreme. They're like, no, I absolutely will not eat past 4 p.m. or I won't eat past 5 or I won't eat until 12. If I wake up one day and I'm absolutely starving, I will eat. Everything that I do for my body comes from an intuitive feeling. And that's how I know when I'm doing the right thing. Like I have my best friend Kate is like, I could never do that. I absolutely love waking up and having a fat breakfast. And I'm like, hell yeah. And I would never tell you to do that because I think at the end of the day, if I can give anyone advice, if you're going to take anything away from this podcast, this episode, is your intuition is so important. It has so much merit. Your body is constantly trying to communicate with you. So if you are taking someone's advice off the internet, you are already doing something wrong. You can take that advice and implement it and see how your body feels and then digest that information and be like, oh, this is good for me. This isn't good for me. That's great. But if you're like, I have to make this work because she said it works for her and I'm going to make myself, then absolutely not. You're already missing the point.
So there's so many things that I want to continue to talk about. And obviously I'll have to bring you back for another episode because there's just so many things that I want to be able to share with our listeners. 2 really quick questions. First one, what's your biggest insecurity and how did you overcome it?
You know what? I had so many big insecurities. I used to be insecure about the fact that I wasn't from here, that I didn't fit in. I didn't know some of the language or the art that came, it just movies, things like that. I used to feel so insecure about that. I also used to feel really insecure over the fact that I'm a very sensitive person. I cry a lot. I feel a lot. I feel a lot. I feel other people's like pain. I feel very affected.
Empathetic.
Yeah, yeah. And I find that to be such a gift now. I feel that I can empathize with people's experiences now, and being able to do that, I can help people. And not only that, I can also help myself, which is the coolest thing ever. I think I used to feel really like just I viewed my ability to feel so much, I guess, as like I'm just a weak person. I must, like, why am I crying at every movie? And instead it goes past that. Like, I would think about my grandparents or something, and I would just start crying. And I'm like, I'm just weak. But it's like, no. My body I'm actually in tune. Actually,
Right.
most people are extremely detached from their emotions. And now I just lean into it so much. And I love it. I honestly used to just feel insecure about myself as a human being. And I don't know, this last year, I was just having a conversation with a friend, and I'm like, I just feel like such a woman, and I feel that internal fire in me. It's like burning, and something about that feels so good. I feel like a very nurturing person, and I'm proud of that, and it makes me excited. It makes me excited to be a mom one day. It makes me excited to like be like a long-term partner. Like, it just, I feel good in my body for once, and I think I overcame that by listening to my body, by being in tune with it, by trying to connect to it instead of trying to push it away and make it fit into some box. Now I'm like, no, this is just who I am, and it's great.
I love that. And then my last question is, what do you love about yourself and why? And you might have just answered it.
I think that's what it is. I think that I love the fact that I am a good friend. I'm a good partner. I think I'm going to be a great mom one day. I love all those things about myself. And I used to, like, even saying that out loud used to make me feel uncomfortable, because I'm like, well, are we allowed to say that? Are we allowed to say that we're like really proud of who we are? But I think if you go through so much stuff, I think I deserve to be able to say that. So.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram. It's just Maryana Dvorska. Super easy. You can find me on TikTok, on YouTube. YouTube fam is my favorite family. I love it over there. It's like
The nicest family.
It's so nice. I love YouTube. You know, Instagram can be a little sometimes. TikTok is cool because I think people are. I guess it depends. Depends on where you land.
Right.
But in the wellness space, I find it to be like a really, really nice community. But YouTube will always be my ride or die.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for coming to the podcast today.
Thank
you guys
you
stay
so
tuned for the
much.
next one.
Thanks. Bye.